Hello, and welcome to the Bottled Up podcast. Today we're going to be talking about our chapter 5 on emotions. My name is Spencer.
I'm Dragon.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Kelsey.
I'm Hillary.
So our chapter evolves around emotions, feeling, thinking, and communicating.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cover all of those topics, including what influences our emotional expression, guidelines for expressing emotions, and managing emotions. We will be comparing this chapter to the article we have selected called The Big Chill, Interpersonal Coldness and Emotional Labeling Skills. This article is about a study that asks if emotionally cold people are better or worse at inferring the emotional states of others.
Okay, so the article that we did, it was pretty cool because it had they did 4 different studies between warm and cold people. They took mostly females though, if I remember right.
I think they said that, yeah. I think it was an even-er mix, but I think it was mostly females.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so the first study they did was like them gauging their own, like if they're a warm or cold person, but they actually did that after the second study, so it wouldn't affect the second study.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took like an AI program and had 7 different emotions: anger, jealousy, sadness,
Bitterness, and like the main ones.
and had them on a scale of 100% shown on the face down to 10% shown on the face.
Mhm.
And they were supposed to hit certain keys for like that emotion that they thought it was, and they were supposed to try and be quick and efficient and correct. And the people who, and it's not even people who self-identified as cold. Most people will identify themselves as warm people. We all like to think that we can tell what other people are feeling. And so they inversed the feelings, what their self-reporting was. And, found that most, the people who are cold they could identify it like 100%. But as you start getting down to 60, 50, 40, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then they also did it with actual actors. And they did it both video-wise and just audio-wise to see how that plays into it.
And that was in the 4 stages, right? The first one was just like pictures or something. The second one they used like morphed faces.
Yeah. They used like on the computer. It was still visual, but it was like not avatars, but like it was.
Yeah.
And then so it was just like lookalikes of people, and then them making their expressions, and it was actual actors, and then it was audio.
And the results they like conclusively found that colder people are worse
Yeah.
at judging emotions.
Like at all of them on all the studies.
Like you said at the top, when it was like super clear, it was pretty steady, but as it got a little more difficult, you could tell.
Yeah.
And women overall were better.
Yeah.
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 The women were better than the men. And then they were talking about like other studies that they can do in the future to further, look at how it impacts, like borderline personality disorder and other narcissism and stuff like that Machiavellism.
Section 1. What are emotions? Physiological factors. When a person has strong emotions, many bodily changes occur. For example, the physical components of fear include an increased heart rate, a rise in blood pressure, an increase in adrenaline secretions, an elevated blood sugar level, a slowing of digestion, and dilation of pupils. Next, nonverbal reactions. Not all physical changes that accompany emotions are internal. Feelings are often apparent by observable changes. Some of those changes involve a person's appearance, blushing, sweat, and so on. Other changes involve behavioral, distinctive facial experience, postural, gestures, different vocal tone and range, and so on. And research confirms what might be guessed. Nonverbal experience of emotion become more pronounced under the influence of alcohol. As an emotion enhancer, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Also, it's reasonable easily to tell when someone is feeling a strong emotion. It's difficult to be certain exactly what the emotion might be. A slump paused, and sigh might be sigh of sadness, or they might be sigh of fatigue. Leg wings, stomping hand might indicate excitement, or they might indicate fear. Verbal and non-verbal expressions of emotion are often interconnected, although those might be situations in which physical, behavioral, and emotional states are directly connected. In most situations, the most plays an important role in determining emotional states. As you read easily, for physically accompanied of fear are reaching heart. Interestingly enough, simple tones are similar to physical changes that accompany excitement, joy, and other positive emotion. In other words, if we will measure the physical condition of someone who has strong emotion, we would have a hard time knowing whether that person was trumping with fear, with excitement. Recognition of bodily companies of most emotions are similar. When we change our interpretation of event affect the way we left about it. Verbal expressions, nonverbal behavior is powerful way of communication emotion. In fact, nonverbal actions are better at conveying emotion than they are at conveying ideas. But sometimes words are necessary to express feeling seen. I'm really angry. It's clearly and probably more helpful than storming out of the room, and I feel nervous. Might be explain a plenty experience on our face. Putting emotion into words can help imagine them effectively.
So that was about what emotions are. My section 2, is the influences on emotional expression. So there's a bunch of broad things that influence emotions. That includes personality, culture, gender, social conventions, social media, and emotional contagion. So why do we think that one person would understand emotions better than others?
One big thing is like how they're raised. So like it's called emotional coaching or emotional dismissal, and it's whether or not their parents teach them like it's okay to express their feelings and it's okay to talk things out, or whether they kind of like make them figure it out on their own, and like the kids have to do observational learning. So they like watch how their parents work, and if it's like they don't really talk about their feelings, that's how they tend to go off of it.
So they're taught.
Yeah, as an adult, one time I had a feeling wheel and a feeling chart. Like how the doctor, they're like, how do you feel today? And they give you like a range of emotions. I had one that was color coded that started with like anger, fear, and sadness. And then from there, it would branch out into like 3 different subcategories of that, and then further branch out so you could figure out exactly how to describe what your emotion is.
Right.
Because a lot of the times you're just like, what am I feeling? Am I sad? What kind of sad am I? And that kind of goes deeper into the personality section. So extroverted people report more positive emotions in everyday life than less extroverted people. The key here is that they report more positive emotions. So the extroverted and the introverted people could be feeling the exact same emotions, but it's how they feel them and what they actually get out of them. So another big thing that influences emotion is culture. So the same events can generate different feelings in different cultures. So a really good example I found is I love you is used more often in the U.S. People from the Middle East might think you are proposing to them if you say I love you, because how often we say it all the time here. Somewhere else it means something really different. It has a lot more power.
We use it for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I love my car. Like, on Anchorman, I love lamp.
Another really cool quote I found was one Polish author described the U.S. expressiveness as, wow, great, that's so damn cheerful.
Yeah.
Which we do say things pretty excitedly. I think it was Asian Americans in Hong Kong, Chinese value low arousal, positive things more. So if you say something calmly, they'll probably appreciate it more than like here we're like, oh yeah, that's great. The other thing that really influences emotion is gender. So you kind of talked about that with your family. So a father might express less emotions than a mother. So that would carry on to the next generation.
Right.
Biological sex is the best predictor of the ability to detect and interpret emotional expressions. Tests of men and women's recollection of emotions, women were 10 to 15% more accurate. And that's just one study, but it seems, I don't know, it seems pretty accurate to me from what I know.
So.
Do you think that women are warmer than men? So in our article, it talks about warm and cold people. Warm people can read emotions better than cold people. Do you think women are naturally warm? Do you think they can read emotions better? Or is it situational?
There's always exceptions to the rule, but I think overall, like it's passed down generation to generation. Like women have this, like you're supposed to be nurturing, which means you have to look at other people and kind of read them. And you're supposed to be a caregiver of sorts. I feel like today, like society-wise, like that's shifting, definitely. And like as more men are rising up, and correct me if I'm wrong, like are getting more able to like be in touch with their emotions, and be able to be nurturers and caregivers as well.
I feel like we have more of an opportunity. I don't know. I feel like I feel more comfortable expressing my emotions to other people. I don't know how it was 50 years ago or whatever.
Right.
But the other big thing is social media. So social media, people tend to be super positive. They only say the best things. And usually if you're already looking for some positive emotions in your life and you go and you see all these people on the internet and they're having this great time, you're going to be like, well, my life is not the best. Look at all these people. Look how happy they are. But that's not really how it is. People definitely jump to conclusions. The other big thing was social conventions. So most emotions we share are positive, and people are reluctant to share their negative emotions. That includes emotional labor, so hiding and controlling your emotions. It can be really hard to tell what someone's feeling if you're like at work and you have to all the time you're consumed by controlling your emotions and always being happy. No one's really going to know how you're actually feeling.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that social media has changed how you express your emotions?
I would say yeah, because like on there I try to be more positive and like not really. I mean, I have more of my family on like certain social media apps and more of my friends on other like I have friends on Instagram and Snapchat, but like Facebook is just for family. So like on there I try to be like more positive and just like say the good things that are going on versus like sometimes on like my other social media things I like say more of like how I actually feel because I know my friends will understand more and I feel like they don't really like my family doesn't need to know since they're like distant family.
I definitely feel the same way, especially with like Instagram. I feel like it's almost a business. Like I'm putting out like, hey, I'm doing great. And on Facebook, it's just kind of like everything kind of sucks.
Yeah.
That brings us into the last influence, which is emotional contagion. So that's the process where emotions are transferred from one person to another. That can be students by teachers, customers by employees, friends, family, and even people you have no idea. Positive and negative emotions are contagious. A study wherein volunteers took surveys about their moods with breaks in between. The brief break resulted in less expressive partner taking on the more expressive person's mood.
That makes sense. They talked about it in chapter 1 or 2 as well, if I remember correctly, where like when you have any kind of relationship with another person, like there's that not like a heart connection, but like you are connected to that person, and so you're going to empathize with them more, and so if they're feeling bad, you're gonna feel bad.
And that has to do with our article as well. Interpersonally cold individuals feel less skilled in inferring the emotions of others. Machiavellism?
Yes.
Yeah. So a person so focused on their own interests that they manipulate, deceive, and exploit others to achieve their goals.
So same thing as self-centered kind of.
Essentially.
Like egotistical.
Yeah. Did you guys want to talk about your sections?
Oh, yeah. So, our section was guidelines for expressing emotions. So it talks about how it gives us certain tips on like how to explain how we feel. So some facts are those who house their emotions are more likely to get a host of ailments such as cancer, asthma, and heart diseases. And those who overexpress negative feelings suffer physiologically, like high blood pressure when angry and like when they're anxious and everything. The key is to learn to express emotions constructively, and learning how will help the chance of improving relationships. So the sections that I had in our part was to recognize your feelings. So those who are effectively oriented know their emotions and are good at making important decisions. Those who aren't are not aware of emotions and regard feelings as useless and unimportant information. Identifying emotions will help with managing them, and that ties a lot into the section, or not the section, the article that was talking about like cold and warm people.
You said something about health.
Mm-hmm.
Interpersonal coldness is also predictive of cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
So is that just because they're not as effective as understanding emotions in conversation that they can't obtain the relationships that we've learned that help our health?
Yeah. When those who are like colder and aren't, what's that called? Like socially active, they're more prone to like catching the common cold.
Plants do the same thing.
Really?
If you like, they've done different experiments with plants where like they played certain types of like music, or you talk to your plant and you say nice things to it versus when you tell the plant how bad it is, and like it does affect its growth. Like the tone and how we speak life into things really does speak life into things.
It's kind of like you don't even have to talk to your pets. It's just the tone of how you say things.
Yeah. Another subtopic was recognizing the difference between feeling, talking, and acting. So that was a short section, but it was basically talking about if you feel a certain way, that doesn't mean you must talk about it, and talking about a feeling doesn't mean you must act on it. A good example for that was like if you're really angry with somebody, you should really take a break before you go and talk about it with them, because you might say things you regret. And talking about a feeling, like if you have really strong feeling towards someone, but you're not sure if they feel the same way, that doesn't mean you need to act upon it. So you don't say, "Oh, I like you," like to get something out of them, because it might like ruin the relationship, or just like you just really should have kept it to yourself for a little bit. And then I also had expand your emotional vocabulary. So that means having an understanding of how you're feeling and being able to clearly say and not beat around the bush will help in relationships and friendships. Also, realizing what you're actually feeling may not be about a relationship as a whole, but a part of it that makes you upset or happy, such as when something particular happens.
Is that being honest with yourself or others as well?
Both.
Both?
So that kind of ties into the next one, which is share multiple feelings. But it's just making sure you say, like, you know how you feel and you know how to, like, say it properly. So, like, the share multiple feelings, you might feel like about a certain situation. Like, an example in here was you had a friend that was supposed to come, like, earlier in the day to come over, and then you had that planned, and then you're waiting for them, and it gets like really late, and then they come, and like you're texting and calling them, but they won't answer, and then they finally show up, and you're excited that they showed up, and you're happy, but you're also angry they didn't text you and call you and like say at least like, hey, like I'm on my way, or like I'll be a little late. So like you need to know how to properly say all that you're feeling and the exact emotions you're feeling, because if you just say I'm angry with you, like because you didn't text me, like you're angry.
It's not the whole story.
Yeah, but you're also happy, so they might only get that part, and then they're just like really thrown off because they're like, oh, like I had sorry, and then you don't let them explain. So it just gets all
it's like
bad.
The color wheel of emotions, but you pick more than one.
Right.
Yeah. Basically.
So the first subsection of my section was considering when and where to express your feelings. So when we have initial feelings in response to something, it's not actually responding, it's reacting. That initial feeling would be, if you acted out on it, it's reacting. And when we're aware of them and when and how to express them, we have an opportunity to grow and expand on that, like the vocabulary that we know, and we're able to just communicate more effectively, I guess.
You talked about the initial reaction that we feel.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's like the truest emotion that we are feeling, or if that's just our brain reacting?
I feel like it's just the brain reacting, because we can retrain our brain. And just because the first feeling is the first feeling doesn't mean it's the appropriate feeling.
In my section, it actually talks about how the amygdala will hijack the brain and will force us to instantly feel feelings of anger or sadness or whatever, when something that we don't expect happening to happen right then and there. So it's not initial emotion that we intend or think about. It just the brain automatically reacting to us.
It's more of just like a chemical reaction.
Yes.
And there's also a thing in here that was really cool for that first subsection. It was talking about rehearsing your interactions, like imagined interactions. And I was wondering, how many of us do that on a regular basis? I try not to rehearse what I'm going to say before I have a conversation. And I don't know if that has been hindering me.
I mean, if I'm really nervous, I do, and I don't mean to, but I don't want to say the wrong thing or make it awkward.
If anything, I think it makes it worse.
Yeah, it does.
It does all the time. I'm always trying to think about what to say, and it's horrifying. Panic attacks.
Mostly
all the
just
time.
looking at the past, like what I could have said, that gets me.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
It's the worst.
especially in arguments.
Yeah. Just over and over again.
Oh, this would have been so good.
And then my second section was accepting responsibility for my feelings. And that's part of that emotional maturity that it talks about. Recognizing that we feel, nobody can make us feel any way, which is really powerful when you think about it, that nobody can affect me that way. I mean, I can have feelings because something happened, but I get to own those, and I get to, work through those myself, especially before responding to them.
Validating your own emotions is huge, because if you're sad and you're like, I can't be sad right now, but if that's what your body is telling you to do, you should probably do it.
Yeah,
Right.
because housing them is not good either.
And that comes back into talking with other people. If other people aren't going to share their emotions, then how are you going to be able to help them and pick up those cues and act accordingly?
Right. Because if you're sad and all you show is, nothing, or show happiness instead of sadness, especially when you're around people who are easily influenced, all it does is reinforce that generational issue of non-expression. And then the third one was being mindful of the communication channel. So there's a lot of different communication channels that we have today to pick. Are we going to call? Are we going to text? Are we going to post it online? Are we going to make a video about it? And when, picking the right outlet for that, it also talked about cancel culture in there, which is where, deeming somebody not good or not okay anymore, and thousands and thousands of people jumping on that bandwagon and deciding no, we're not going to stand for this, and just cutting them off it's getting to where it's such minor offenses. It's just because you make one little mistake and all of a sudden
You have millions of people just because it's so easy to get the word out.
and everyone's able to hide behind that. Nobody has to see you or hear you. You can just put all your the worst parts of you out online.
So if you had horrible news that you had to tell someone, what would you choose? Would you call them? Would you text them? Would you show up in person?
I feel like it depends on what news.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's like, oh, somebody died, like,
Probably going to go in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's like, oh, I got a bad grade on a test, I failed this class, or like, you know, I'm not feeling good, like, I'd probably text or call because it's not immediate. Like, they need to know, like, right then and there.
But it's definitely easier
Yeah.
to
Right.
shoot
Yeah.
them a text. It's, I don't know, I feel like it's a coping mechanism almost. Like, I don't want to feel these emotions yet, so I'm just going to,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a text. There you go. You're
Yeah.
done.
Cart them off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So mine was managing emotions, and it starts off by talking about debilitative and facilitative emotions, which is what are good and what are bad emotions, and what are bad emotions to an extent of too much of an emotion, making it a bad emotion. And that means more of like anger and having too much anger, making it too much of a not driving force to make it to where you're not moving forward. You get so angry that you have road rage and you get mad, you start yelling, screaming, and the next thing you know, you hit someone's car with your car, and then now you have a big bill and you're even more mad. There's no productivity there. Or you're so afraid of going out and talking to your boss about a raise that you never get the raise, you never get the money, and next thing you know, someone else has a job promotion, and you could have asked for that instead of just a raise if you had just walked in to your boss's office.
So-
These emotions are just hindering.
We've got the opposite of not expressing your emotions. You're expressing your emotions too much, and now it's all you're feeling.
Yes. They're just so overwhelming of these emotions that you didn't let them get out to the right amount, and they overwhelmed you, and they just stopped you from doing everything. And that's where you have to fight it with self-talk and positive self-talk, because the emotions they're a way of talking through and solving the problems. If you can talk yourself out of a negative self-talk and a negative emotion, like being scared or anxious, you can talk yourself into, I'm excited about going in and doing a project with my group, or I'm excited about going in and proposing to my girlfriend or my boyfriend, instead of I'm afraid she's going to say no or he's going to say no and stand me up in front of this group of people at the restaurant. And you can be excited and think they're going to say yes instead of they're going to say no. And it's all about the way you tell yourself how it works. And that provides a really good self-talk and helps you stay out of those very debilitative emotional states that it's too much. And the amygdala, like I said earlier, is something that's hard to fight with those positive self-talks, but the only way to stop it is to give that self-talk, to force yourself out of those random emotions where it instantly, suddenly throws you into them and puts you in these really dire, like, I'm in a fight or flight mode. This person sat down next to me, and all of a sudden, I'm really scared. I need to talk myself out of this. There's no reason why I should be scared of this person who sat down in this doctor's office next to me. Like, we're in the doctor's office. There's no reason. It's these debilitative emotions usually come from irrational thoughts that we accept. And these irrational thoughts are very stressful and hard on people who accept them. It's very stressful and difficult for them to get through some of them, because it's like being perfect, having complete perfectionism in the speech that they have, trying to be flawless in all of it. Not a moment where they don't mess up. And while they're not messing up, they're draining all of their emotions, they're draining all of their energy. And if one moment someone sees through that, they feel like they've failed. Their whole life comes crashing down, and they've lost all their energy, just completely.
Would people who accept that, like, when they do fail, are they then like more likely to not try again?
I believe so. It probably depends on the person, because if they're caught early enough, they probably still have energy. But if they've been doing it for years and years, they'd probably give up. They'd feel like it's their whole life is just over. And it also depends on how much they've been lying to themselves and to others. There'd be nothing for most people who have accepted this. It's heartbreaking for some people. I would think so.
I was going to say this whole like self-talk, understanding your emotions is a process. Like you were giving examples of like, oh, I can turn this situation, I'm going to be happy, or I'm hopeful that they do this. That is not like an easy change to make in your life, especially if you are an emotionally cold person. It's going to take years and years.
It is difficult. I mean, just being prepared for this, trying to talk yourself into talking to a group of people, it's difficult. Like, I don't know anyone in this group. I have to talk myself up to say, hi, I'm so and so. Like that, you get nervous. Like, I'm gonna mess up my own name.
It's okay. We can edit it out.
But that's like the approval that comes right after that. The fallacy of approval is that you want everyone to accept you. You'll do whatever you need for acceptance, and so you'll give up your own happiness.
I was going to say, does that include emotions?
Yeah, you'll give up your own emotions, your own happiness, your own everything. You'll stop other relationships. You'll stop eating. You'll stop sleeping. You'll stop doing just about everything. You'll be on your phone 24/7. You'll be trying to send videos everywhere, uploading things. You'll do whatever you can to get approval of everyone you know, everyone you don't know, just so that everyone in the world thinks you're an okay person or a great person, whatever you want them to think you are.
And you're doing that for yourself, right? Like you're trying to get that approval to feel
Self-approval.
like
Yeah.
that little bit of dopamine.
Yeah, that small self-approval, so you feel just slightly happier. Except you're destroying your whole life to get that small little smile out of some random person.
It's temporary happiness.
And
Instant gratification.
It's not even real happiness.
it's not. It's really not. It's so saddening. It's very difficult, and it happens in workplaces too, because workplaces will force you to stop your own emotions and your own wants and needs and care to the customer. They started this whole trend with that, with whatever's going on, the customer comes first. And it's important for customers to come first because that is your money, but the worker shouldn't have to sacrifice all that they are just so that the worker is given nothing while the customer gets what they want.
I worked at insert retail name here for 3.5 years, and it really is, you are smiling to these people that would trample you easily. And it's so draining. You get home at the end of your day, and I may not have moved a bunch, but I had to lie to these people's faces continuously, and I'm tired.
It takes a certain kind of person to be in customer service. That's why, like, it's on career, like, sites. Like, it's a whole section by itself because it takes a certain kind of person. I had one job where I was, somebody had bought a bottle of water. They left a water ring. I reached down, grabbed napkins after they were done, and wiped it off, told the customer, hold on 1 second as I'm wiping. The customer then called corporate and said that I was rude and I wouldn't let them put their stuff on their counter. They had paper. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let your paper get wet. But I had to, like, it went to corporate, and corporate's like, the store manager needs to talk to you. This needs to go in your file. You need to be assessed.
I mean, what more could you have done? You were nice to them, but they
Right.
still didn't accept it.
They just wanted my soul, that's all.
That actually fits into the overgeneralization. Like, it's giving just a little bit of information and making it just huge. One small thing, and just extending it horrendously, like being late once or twice, and then someone who's always there to be there to help you get to where you're supposed to be saying you're always late. That happens more often than not with a bunch of people who work together, and bosses who hear these stories usually buy into them, and that gets people fired. It gets people losing pay. It hurts everyone's paychecks, and it hurts everyone's feelings and emotions, because now they're being blamed for things that they only did once or twice. They didn't mean to do it, or it was really important emergencies, like family emergencies that they actually cared about, and now they're being hurt.
It's the classic lack of communication in a workplace.
Exactly. And or too much communication in the wrong way. Because someone who's not empathizing with others, wanting that wrong way of emotional depth. They want their anger to come out. They want that rage to fuel their environment.
Would you say that's an emotionally cold person? Or would you say it's different?
It could be emotionally cold for some cases, but I think a few cases it would be more of a disdain for the person or for the workplace, because they could be trying to get the people that are in the workplace to be not in the top shape so that the workplace closes, or it could be that the person has a really high disdain for the person that they're trying to get fired. So, I mean, it could be an emotionally cold person who just, this person's always late. I don't like that. I'm reporting it. In the causation right here, where the emotions of others' actions are trouble to them, they don't care or have convenience of this emotion is mine. My emotions are from other people's actions. You're late. That made me angry. It's your problem.
It's never on them.
It's never on them. This fell. I got hurt. I'm really sad. That shouldn't have fallen. It's not their fault. That's
Even if they put it on a shelf halfway off.
yes.
Right.
Even if they inadvertently did it, it's not their fault. And
It's
that's
the lady that called corporate on you.
Yeah.
yeah. It's so bad. It's a very irrational, sad way of things to go, because no matter what, you're going to get hurt, and they're not going to take responsibility if they know or don't know that they did it. Because sometimes they won't even know. They'll actually believe that they didn't do anything wrong. They'll think that fell. It's that thing's fault. I didn't put that there like that, and it fell.
Or someone put it there, and then it hurt me.
So it's that person's fault and that thing's fault. It's horrifying that they won't think it's not someone's fault in particular. It's just how things fell.
It's an accident, or maybe I could have been looking at my surroundings.
Yeah, they never ever blame themselves, or I could have done this. No.
I should have watched where I was walking. No. It's everything else's fault.
Yeah.
And helplessness. The fallacy of helplessness is that they always see themselves as the victim. Whether they weren't hurt in the process or they were, they'll see themselves as the biggest victim. Whether their friend was the one that was gypped of money or not, they'll act like they lost the money. They're the victim of the statement of major things. It's like no matter what's going on, they're not in control. Everyone else is in control, and they have no power.
That poor me mentality.
The world is corporates, and I will never be able to climb that ladder. So I will stay right where I'm at, and no one will ever help me. That's how they will feel. It's part of the catastrophic expectations fallacy, where if something bad can happen, it will always happen. If I could get fired today for just accidentally putting paper in the printer and it blowing up for some reason, it's going to blow up. It's going to happen. I'm going to get fired. Something's going to go wrong today. It's going to go wrong.
That's where the reframing is essential, because if you go into the day thinking, oh, it's going to suck, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
But if you go into the day like, oh, something great might happen today, I'm going to go do this and this and this, it'll just reframing your own mindset helps enormously.
Oh, yeah. But sadly, thinking that way won't completely stop your debilitative emotions.
Oh, absolutely.
Because some of them are actually very rational still, like a death, like losing someone, even just a breakup in a relationship, feeling that sadness, the depression that comes with it. It's still rational to feel that way, even just for a little bit. It's just if it becomes a festering emotion, too long feeling that way or too strong of that emotion, it becomes a problem. But it's okay to feel those emotions for a little bit. Like,
it's when you latch onto them.
yes, latching onto them is when it's a severe problem, and that's why we need to work on talking with self-talk. Like, okay, now it's time. I should probably start trying to work through this. I should start to try to find another job now that I've been fired. I've taken a week off to kind of collect myself and calm down. Everything's going to be okay. That type of thing. It's minimizing the bad, debilitating emotions after going through it and then working on it slowly, because it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be easy. It's just one step at a time.
Can you self-talk with other people?
Yes. Self-talk is easy to do by yourself, and it's also easy to do with other people, because all that it is like a therapy appointment. You're trying to talk with them about, hey, how are you feeling? Tell me how you're feeling. And then say, okay, let's look at the bright side of things. What good did happen today? It stopped raining earlier. The sun started shining. Your car's clean. You didn't hit that light post that you almost hit because that jerk swerved into you. You're okay. You didn't have to pay $100 to fix your tail light and half the side of your car because you didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of self-talk that can be done between friends as well as family and